Hi bookworms and bookmarks, welcome back to the channel. It's Charlotte and today I'm going to be giving you 12 new releases that you probably haven't heard about yet. So 7 of the books I'm about to talk to you about are actually eligible for this year's Booker Prize, which is fastly approaching. But the first book that I'm going to talk to you about is called The Details by Aya Genberg. Now this one really resonated with me when it was compared to the work of Rachel Cusk and Sheila Heti. From that I am expecting masterful, beautiful, evocative prose, and from the front cover we can see an image that has been broken up into parts, and that is because this novel centres around 4 portraits and the idea of the small pieces and details of our lives coming together to celebrate what it means to be human. And so I'm hoping this is really great. This is my first dive into this author, and I think from that blurb and the fact that it is translated, and I'm always on the lookout for new translated authors to me. The second book on this list is also a piece of translated fiction, and this is The City of the Living by Nicola Laggiola. And this really sounded great to me because this is a literary thriller based on the true story of one of the most vicious crimes Italy has ever seen. This takes the readers on a journey into the darkest depths of the human soul and also contemporary Rome. And so that premise to me just sounds fantastic. Are we going to get a sort of Dan Brown-esque thriller type novel where we are racing around the inner city streets of Rome trying to pick up clues and decipher along the way? I hope so. The next book is called Our Hideous Progeny, and this is another book that is inspired, I guess, by the Frankenstein story by Mary Shelley. This is about a couple, but mainly centres on Mary, and she has a husband who is kind of a waste of space. He's gambled away the majority of their inheritance, but meanwhile Mary is the niece of Victor Frankenstein, who is famous for having gone missing. We are in Victorian London. There is a creature that is going to be created, and we find that out from the blurb of the book, that we assume Mary and her husband Henry are going to create this creature, and what's going to happen from there. So this is going to be historical, gothic. This is a new release to put onto your TBRs for Victober. The next novel, Now I Am Here, is reminding me a lot of At Night All Blood is Black. This is a debut novel. We're dealing with an unnamed, unreliable narrator as he recounts to us the kind of final downfall of the armed forces unit that he is part of, and basically plays on the same idea that At Night All Blood is Black did, in that, you know, good people can do bad things, and how a lovely gentleman is transformed into this vicious war criminal and has committed heinous crimes that he would never think of committing in his former non-military life. So this is eligible for the book of this year, and I do wonder if it will make the cut because it is playing into the right sort of themes for the Booker Prize. My only caveat to that will be that it is slightly on the slim side, so whether it will be eligible is up for debate, I think. The next new release is one that I'm really excited about because I've just finished reading it this month. This is For Thy Great Pain Have Mercy on My Little Pain. Now, I am not the biggest fan of titles that are sentences. I mean, I had to look at my notes to remember the title of this book, and I have read it. So that's not a great thing, I don't think. I don't think it should be an entire sentence as the book title, because you just can't remember it. And whilst I enjoyed the book, I should be able to remember the book title. This is also a very short novel at about, I think it's less than 150 pages, and so it just tickles me that such a tiny book has one of the longest book titles I've seen this year. But this is actually really great. This is about 2 women and their stories, and they are both kind of parallel short stories until these 2 women meet, and it kind of converges, and it has a greater message of the church and the traumatized women of the time that would turn to the church because I think life had just given them so much that it was too much, and that they were fleeing from the world to the church in some way, because in dealing with mental health and putting up your hands kind of thing and thinking, I don't want any more from this world, you know, from all the things you can imagine is happening in that sort of world, from lost babies to abusive husbands and that sort of thing. So it is really, really great. I have to admit, I really was impressed by the writing of this novel. I believe it's a debut, but don't quote me on that. And yes, if its page count is long enough, this would be eligible for the Booker, because it's not short stories. It reads that way, but it's two women's lives in parallel that eventually converge. It's time to get excited for the next book, because this is by one of my all-time favourite authors and one of my all-time favourite publishing houses. This is Matthias Onard, being published by Fitzcarraldo, and when I found out that this was going to be released, I almost squealed. This has the most fantastic title. This is the annual banquet of the Gravediggers Guild. I'm going to read you the blurb of this because I'm just too excited to formulate proper thoughts. But this is: to research his thesis on contemporary agrarian life, anthropology student David Mason moves from Paris to La Pierre-Saint-Christophe, a village in the marshlands of western France. Determined to capture the essence of rurality, the intrepid scholar shuttles around restlessly on his moped to interview local residents. Unbeknownst to David, in these nondescript lands, once theatres of wars and revolutions, death leads the dance. When an existence ends, the wheel of life recycles its soul and hurls it back into the world as microbe, human, and wild animal, sometimes in the past, sometimes in the future. Only once a year do death and the living observe a temporary truce during a gargantuan 3-day feast where grave diggers gorge themselves on food, libations, and language, presided over by the village mayor. Brimming with Onard's characteristic wit and encyclopedic brilliance, this is a riotous novel where the edges between past and present are constantly dissolving against a Rabelaisian backdrop of excess and a paradoxically macabre paean to life's inexhaustible richness. I mean, I didn't really even understand half that, but I'm just so excited. But this sounds very magical realist. I guess when you go around talking to and interviewing different members of the community, then that kind of will lend itself to more of a short story form, potentially. But yes, whenever, I think this is coming out in the final quarter of the year. So yeah, when that comes out, I will be on it. So the next one that I want to point out to you is a piece of translated fiction. This is Domenico Starnone's The House on Via Gemito. This is a searching piece of autofiction, primarily about masculinity and some of the more toxic aspects of the father-son relationship. This is about a family in post-war Naples, and ultimately it's about a son trying to get out of the shadow of his father. There are 2 books on this list that grapple with motherhood, pregnancy, and childbirth. This has been an incredibly popular theme across the board this year. It was well represented in the International Booker Prize long list, and potentially, I guess, will be represented well in this year's Booker long list. For some reason, those themes are very popular right now. And so this first one is Reproduction by Louisa Hall. This is very meta in that she's writing about a novelist who is writing about Mary Shelley and how she wrote Frankenstein and how she is grappling there with the human cost of reproduction, whilst at the same time the author in the book is grappling with her own reproduction struggles. So her experiences of being pregnant and giving birth during the pandemic and the impacts of climate change and her worries about that. So this is a profoundly feminist exploration of motherhood, reproductive science, and artistic ambition. The second new release that also deals with this type of theme is The Wren The Wren by Anne Enright, out in August. Now this one is about the inheritance of trauma as we follow 3 women across their lives. Anne Enright has been Booker nominated before. This would actually be my first Anne Enright novel, so I look forward to it in that sense, and it's also grappling with themes that I enjoy and am familiar with, and so I feel like this would be a hit for me when I get round to it in August. So one of the final books I have to talk to you about today then is a book by another one of my favourite authors. This is Catherine Ryan Howard. She is a crime thriller writer, and in October she is releasing The Trap. This is inspired by a series of still unsolved disappearances in 1990s Ireland. And in this novel, one young woman risks it all to try and unmask a faceless killer. Howard's writing is just so compelling and brilliant. She has done something similar to this plot-wise in The Nothing Man, which had that cat and mouse like effect going on, and it just raised the stakes so much when you're in the head of a young female protagonist who is going out to kind of battle serial killers single-handedly. The Nothing Man was a smashing success. If you have not read that book and you enjoy crime thrillers, where have you been? Get it on your TBR as soon as possible. And then this one that we release in October will be the perfect autumn-winter reading choice. The next book is Lone Women, and this is by Victor Lavelle. This is going to be Booker eligible this year, and I am really excited about this one. I have just started this, and wow, it is really compelling. The writing is so good that you don't even have to think about it. This, I am just so absorbed in the writing and the plot. This has a great structure going on because he has a woman who has burnt down her home in the first page, I think, her family home with her two parents inside it. And so she has this whole new beginnings, rebirth journey that we're going on with her. She literally gets on a train. And so he knows his storytelling, right? You have the fire, you have the journey, she's landed in her new place, and it's about her life. Where she has bought from the American government, she has bought a parcel of land, and they say, right, if you are able to look after and nurture this parcel of land for a period of 2 years, then you then get to own this land. It's yours, you can have it. And so she arrives with no skill, no experience of land rearing or farming or whatever it is, and it's about the connections that she's going to meet, and she brings along with her, though, this very mysterious, almost magical realist, I guess, suitcase, trunk with her. And there's something in the trunk, she's fearful of it, she won't tell us what it is, and so it's constantly lingering in the back of my mind, and the reader's mind, therefore. What is she doing? Why did she burn down her house? What is going on? Was there some abuse that was going on? Is she psychologically unhinged? What is going on? So can we rely on her? And I do love a great unreliable narrator. So the whole thing is very compelling, and I must admit I'm having a great time with it. I'm now 25% of the way through the book, so I won't tell you any more about it, but you probably will be hearing about it in my July wrap-up if it continues in this way. So this final book then is by Laurie Moore, an author that is incredibly popular and loved, but I have not read a single work by. So this is I Am Homeless If This Is Not My Home. And this is grappling with the themes of death, grief, loss, and at its heart is kind of an absurdist zombie story, an inventive twist on the traditional road trip narrative, and a philosophical yet comedic deep dive into human life and what communication looks like between the dead and the living. So that sounds really interesting to me. This is, of course, Booker eligible. It's our final book and it's Booker eligible. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Let me know down in the comments below, were any of these new to you? Were any of these authors a surprise that you've never read them before and they have a new release coming out? Which ones are you looking forward to getting to? I shall link in the description box down below the first anticipated book releases video that I released in Q1 of the year. In case you missed that, that will be linked down below for all of the releases in the first 6 months. This kind of covers the, I guess, March to October, November time frame, and then there will be a third anticipated releases video from me in about September to cover that final 3 months of the year. So I hope you're reading great things. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and I'll chat to you all in the comments down below. Bye!